Have you ever felt, I don't know, a twinge of guilt or maybe hesitation when you're trying to sell something you made, like you were suddenly being a nuisance or you're just bothering people?
Oh, yeah. That creeping feeling of feeling like a fraud or a spammer. It's so common.
Right. Today, we are completely tearing down that old playbook. You're the one
Yeah.
full of spam, shouting, and just shameless hustling. We're looking at why everything you thought you knew about marketing is likely completely wrong, and how true marketing is actually this act of radical generosity.
Exactly. It's a total paradigm shift.
Yeah, so over the next hour or so, we are doing a deep dive into the opening chapter of Seth Godin's book, This is Marketing. The chapter is called Not Mass, Not Spam, Not Shameful. We're going to unpack exactly why the old era of just interrupting people is dead.
Good riddance to it, honestly.
Seriously.
Right.
And we'll see why embracing a deeply empathetic approach to how you share your ideas is the only way forward for anyone trying to build a business, launch a project, or just, make a positive change in the world.
It really is a foundational realignment. I mean, we are taking the entire concept of what it actually means to be a marketer, stripping away decades of really bad toxic habits and looking at the absolute core function of sharing value with another human being.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Oh,
Because I think to understand where we need to go this enlightened, generous version of marketing, we have to take a really hard look at the environment we're currently operating in. And honestly, it is a incredibly noisy environment.
it's entirely overwhelming. And the baseline context we have to establish right out of the gate is just how omnipresent marketing is. I mean, from your very first memories as a child to the exact moment right before you hit play on this deep dive, you've been inundated by it.
Oh, absolutely.
There's this incredibly striking observation in the text. It points out that we actually learn to read from the logos on the side of the road.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. Marketing is more than a lake or a forest or a mountain range. It's the actual physical and psychological landscape of our modern lives.
That image of a kid in the backseat of a car, just sounding out the letters of a fast food billboard before they can even read a picture book, it's so visceral. It just shows how deeply embedded this stuff is. We literally don't live in nature anymore. We live in a landscape of brands.
Precisely. And that sheer omnipresence, it creates this massive society-wide blind spot.
Mm.
Because it has been done to us for so long and so relentlessly, we just take it completely for granted.
Right, the fish and water thing.
Exactly. We are like the classic metaphor of the fish who doesn't understand what water is. A fish doesn't wake up and say, wow, the water is particularly wet today. It just swims.
It just swims, yeah.
We are swimming in this absolute sea of persuasion, and because it's everywhere, it becomes invisible to us. We fail to see what's actually happening all around us, and more dangerously, we don't notice how it is constantly shaping our desires, our fears, and our culture.
It's the what water scenario. I mean,
Yeah.
think about waking up in the morning, you turn off your alarm on your phone, and before you've even had a sip of coffee, you've seen a push notification for a shoe sale.
Oh, at least 3 of them.
Right. You've scrolled past sponsored posts on social media, you've checked your email, and deleted 5 newsletters. I mean, you have been marketed to 20 times before your feet even hit the floor.
And because we don't see it clearly as a mechanism, our definition of what marketing actually is becomes incredibly distorted. We confuse the worst, most intrusive examples of it with the discipline itself.
Yeah, we think marketing is just that annoying pop-up ad that blocks the article you're trying to read.
Or the unskippable commercial before a video. We think it's just, selling soap.
Selling soap. We associate it strictly with massive, faceless corporations pushing consumer goods we don't even need. But this is where we have to make a massive pivot. If we want to understand the new playbook, we have to completely redefine the scope.
We have to.
The text argues that marketing isn't just about selling soap, and the days when marketing and advertising were the exact same thing reserved only for some vice president in a corner office with a massive budget, those days are completely, unequivocally over.
This is the first major paradigm shift you need to internalize if you're listening. We are broadening the definition to encompass almost every human interaction where persuasion, influence, and change are involved. It entirely democratizes the concept.
And the examples used to illustrate this are wild. They completely pull the rug out from under you. It argues that when you give a TED Talk, you are marketing.
Yep.
When you ask your boss for a raise, you are marketing. When you're just trying to raise money to build a local playground to your neighborhood, you are marketing. Even if you're an employee just trying to grow your specific division at work, That is marketing too.
It takes this intimidating, corporate, jargon-filled concept and places the tools directly into your hands, whether you consider yourself an entrepreneur or not.
But wait, let me play devil's advocate here for a second because I have to push back on this.
Go for it.
If everything from asking for a raise to organizing a neighborhood bake sale is considered marketing, doesn't that just water down the definition until it means absolutely nothing?
Right.
I mean, how on earth is a mid-level employee asking for a 5% bump in salary doing the exact same thing as a multinational shoe company launching a global television campaign? They feel like fundamentally different acts.
It's a very valid challenge, actually, and it's where the real nuance of this philosophy shines. Because the unifying thread isn't the scale of the operation.
Yep.
It's not the size of the budget or even the medium being used. The unifying thread is the intent. Marketing, at its absolute core, is the attempt to make change happen.
Make change happen.
Yes, it is an effort to change a specific culture for the better and fundamentally to solve someone's problem.
Okay, walk me through that. How is asking for a raise making change happen in the same way a brand does?
Let's break down the mechanics of asking for a raise. You aren't just walking into an office and saying, give me more money because I want to buy a nicer car. Or, well, if you are, you probably aren't getting the raise.
Definitely not getting the raise.
Right. When you successfully ask for a raise, you're presenting a compelling narrative. You are trying to persuade your boss that the current culture of your team and the financial distribution within it needs to change to reflect your true value.
Ah, I see.
You're identifying a problem that your boss has. Maybe it's employee retention or fairness, or the need to recognize high output to motivate the rest of the team. And you are offering a solution, paying you more to secure that output.
You are pitching a better future state.
Exactly. You are saying if you make this change, your life as a manager will be better. When a multinational corporation launches a product, they are doing the exact same thing, just on a macro level.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that makes sense.
They're trying to shift consumer behavior by promising to solve a problem. They're saying, if you buy these running shoes, your life will be better. You'll be faster or more stylish or feel more athletic. The core act of persuasion, of empathy, of value creation remains identical. The only thing that changes is the size of the audience.
That makes a ton of sense. It removes that gross corporate veil from the word. It strips away the budget and the billboards and gets right down to human psychology.
It really does. And the vital realization for you, the listener right now, is that you are a marketer. Whether you like the title, whether you find it distasteful, you are an agent of change. You're constantly trying to persuade people to adopt your ideas, your projects, your worldview.
Yeah.
And to navigate this, we are given a brilliantly simple, clarifying question that cuts through all the noise. The answer to just about every question regarding your work, your art, or your business is simply answering, who can you help?
Who can you help? Man, that completely flips the script. It moves us away from what can I sell or how can I extract value to who can I serve?
It changes your entire posture, but adopting that posture is incredibly difficult. Why? Because we carry so much psychological baggage about what we think we're supposed to do when we have an idea or a product to share. We look at the water we're swimming and all those billboards and spam emails, and we just mimic it.
Which brings us to the massive trap that catches almost everyone. Because we don't inherently understand the service-oriented nature of marketing, we completely default to the worst, most superficial tactics the second we finally have something to share. We fall headfirst into the trap of getting the word out.
Oh, getting the word out. It is the most common and arguably the most destructive pitfall for any creator, entrepreneur, or leader.
That sounds so innocent, though.
It does.
Right.
But think about the emotional journey of creating something. You spend months, maybe years, writing a book, coding an app, or building a small business. You pour your soul into it, and then launch day arrives and, well, panic sets in.
The terrifying crickets.
Exactly. You look around, you see the noise, and you assume that to survive, you must become part of the noise.
There's this observation in the text that is almost painfully accurate. When in doubt, we selfishly shout. I love that phrasing. We just start making noise. We inherently assume that everyone out there in the world is exactly like us, just temporarily uninformed about how incredibly great our new thing is. So we try to force our message right in front of their faces. We interrupt them.
And we employ an entire multi-billion-dollar industry of tactics to facilitate that shouting. When someone asks that perfectly wrong question, how do I get the word out? They immediately turn to the modern traps designed to separate them from their money.
Oh, man. The list of these traps. If you've ever tried to launch anything, this is going to sound so familiar. You hire the SEO experts who promise you'll magically appear on the first page of Google if you just keyword stuff your website.
Yep.
You pay Facebook and an Instagram consultants who claim they have the secret algorithm to interrupt just the right people at just the right time. You bring in PR professionals who promise you flashy articles and mentions in magazines. Or, if you have venture capital backing, you pay the modern-day Don Drapers for beautiful, sexy, incredibly expensive advertisements.
And all of this effort, all of this massive expenditure of capital and anxiety is done for one singular purpose: to get the word out, to be loud. But the reality check here is ruthless. That is not marketing, not anymore. And more importantly, it simply doesn't work.
Let's break down why it doesn't work. Because on the surface, it feels perfectly logical, right?
Yeah.
If I have a great product, I need people to know about it, so I buy a megaphone. But it's like building a giant, incredibly expensive megaphone before you've even figured out what language your audience speaks, or if they even want to hear from you in the first place.
That's a great analogy. Let's look at the mechanism of a Facebook ad that is born from this panic. You buy the ad, it pops up in someone's feed while they're looking at photos of their niece. You have successfully interrupted them. You have gotten the word out. But because you haven't done the deep work of empathy, because you are just selfishly shouting, the user is annoyed. They scroll past. Or worse, they click, realize your product doesn't actually solve their specific, nuanced problem, and they bounce.
So you paid for the interruption, but you gained zero trust. You gained zero resonance.
Exactly. This raises an important question, though. If getting the word out is mathematically and psychologically failing, why is it still the absolute default setting for 99% of businesses?
Because it feels like action. It feels productive. When you're terrified that your business might fail, writing a check to a digital marketing agency to run Google Ads feels like you were doing something. It's a tangible metric. You can look at a dashboard and say, look, we had 10,000 impressions today.
Right. Look at all these eyeballs, even if none of those eyeballs actually care.
Yeah, exactly. It is a tactical shortcut that allows you to avoid the much harder, much scarier strategic questions. It's way easier to buy an ad than it is to look in the mirror and ask, did I actually build something that people truly need? So the vital takeaway here is a sequencing issue. You must stop making getting the word out your first step.
Yeah, we aren't saying discovery doesn't matter. Obviously, people need to find your work. But discovery is the last part of the process, not the first. Marketing is important enough to do right, which means doing the heavy lifting of building something worth sharing before you ever worry about who is going to share it.
Discovery is a byproduct of resonance.
Bingo. If you build a solution that perfectly addresses a specific pain point for a specific group of people, the discovery process begins to take care of itself. Let's say you build a software tool that perfectly solves a massive headache for freelance graphic designers. You don't need a Super Bowl ad.
No.
If you get it into the hands of 10 freelance designers and it genuinely transforms their workflow, what do?
They tell every other freelance designer they know. Because sharing a great tool raises their own status within their community. They become the hero who found the solution.
Precisely. They do the marketing for you. That is organic discovery driven by resonance. But if you start with the megaphone and just shout at a million random people, you bypass that entire organic mechanism. You're just adding to the noise pollution.
And that constant interruption, that absolute obsession with shouting, has created a deeply toxic culture around business. Which brings us to a really fascinating contrast from the chapter. The shameless hustle versus the shameful hiding.
Oh, this part is so crucial.
Because the ecosystem is so polluted with bad actors, it actually creates a psychological barrier that prevents good people from doing great work.
This is a profound dynamic to understand. Let's look at the psychology of the shameless hustler. This is the person operating with a short-term, profit-maximizing mindset. They don't care about the long-term culture. They only care about the transaction today. So they easily adopt a shameless mindset. They rely entirely on spamming, tricking, coercing, and manipulating. It is the pursuit of attention at the absolute expense of truth.
We all know these people. The guys standing in front of rented Lamborghinis on YouTube telling you they have the secret to passive income, but you have to buy their course right now before the timer runs out.
Right. And what's crucial to understand is that this dynamic, this shamelessness, is utterly unique to terrible marketing. You don't see this behavior in other professions.
The analogies used in the text to highlight this are so funny, but they make the point perfectly. Think about it. You never see civil engineers calling senior citizens in the middle of the night to aggressively sell them worthless collectible coins. It's an absurd image.
It's completely absurd.
You don't see accountants actively extracting their clients' private data without permission just to sell it to a third party for a quick buck. You don't see orchestra conductors proudly logging onto Yelp to post fake five-star reviews of their own symphonies.
Why is that? Why the massive contrast in professional ethics? It comes down to the metrics of reality. A civil engineer builds a bridge.
Yeah.
That bridge must stand up to gravity, weather, and physics. Their work is grounded in objective reality and service to public safety. If they lie, the bridge falls down.
Yeah.
But the shameless marketer operates in a reality distortion field. The only metric they care about is the immediate click, the immediate credit card swipe, the human costs of broken promises. None of that registers to them.
And the tragedy is that these scammers, these hustlers, are just so incredibly loud. They completely dominate the landscape. They're the ones filling up your email spam folder, running those deceptive bait-and-click ads, making the robocalls at dinner time. They are the visible face of marketing to the average person.
And this leads to the tragic consequence. Because the scammers are so loud and so highly visible, ethical, generous, brilliant people, people who actually have something incredibly valuable to offer the world, begin to feel shame.
Yeah, they do.
They feel an intense shame about the prospect of being market-driven. They subconsciously equate the act of marketing with scamming.
So they hide. This is the shameful hiding. They spend years making something wonderful, something that could really help people. And then instead of proudly sharing it, they whisper about it. Or they don't share it at all.
It breaks my heart to see it.
They suffer from this mix of imposter syndrome and almost a moral superiority. They tell themselves, I don't want to be a sleazeball, I don't want to bother anyone, so I'll just let the work speak for itself. And they let the hustlers monopolize all the attention.
It is a devastating cycle. The shamelessness of a few bad actors creates a paralyzing shame in the many good actors. And if you are listening to this and you've ever felt that hesitation to put your work out there because you didn't want to feel salesy, you are a victim of this dynamic.
You really are.
You have to reject this false dichotomy. You must stop feeling bad about charging for your work or actively seeking out the clients who need you.
It's almost a manifesto for creators. It's time to stop looking for shortcuts. Time to stop making average, middle-of-the-road stuff for average people in the hopes that you can just charge a commodity price and fly under the radar. It's time to stop begging people to pay attention to you. You have to actively abandon the shame.
Because look at the alternative. If you hide your work out of some misplaced sense of purity, you aren't being noble. You are actually depriving the people who genuinely need your help.
Oof, that's a gut punch.
It is. If you have the cure to a disease, it is unethical to keep it a secret. If you have a service that can save a small business from bankruptcy or a piece of art that can bring someone genuine joy, failing to share it is a failure to solve the problem you are entirely capable of solving. Hiding is selfish.
Wow, hiding is selfish. That is a massive perspective shift. Okay, so we abandon the shame and we agree to put down the giant megaphone and we stop trying to just get the word out to anyone with a pulse. What exactly are we left with? If the old playbook is completely burned, what is the new playbook?
This brings us to the absolute core philosophy, the thesis that redefines the entire industry.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because the first thing we have to do is establish what marketing is not. For decades, we've used this aggressive, militaristic language in business. We talk about capturing market share. We talk about targeting consumers. We talk about destroying the competition or dominating a sector.
It's literally the language of warfare. And
Okay.
it inherently frames the customer as an opponent to be conquered or a resource to be extracted. But the radical shift here is stripping all of that away. Marketing is not a battle. It's not a war. It isn't even a contest to see who can be the loudest.
The new definition is so profoundly different. It states, marketing is the generous act of helping someone solve a problem, their problem.
I really want to focus on those last two words.
Like-
Their problem, not your problem. Your problem is that you need to make payroll, or you want to buy a boat, or you want 1 million followers on Instagram. The customer does not care about your problem. This new definition requires a massive, uncomfortable mindset shift. It requires profound empathy. You have to step entirely outside of your own ego and your own desires and truly do the hard emotional labor of seeing the world the way your audience sees it.
You have to be driven by the market, not your own narcissism. You have to understand the tension they are feeling when they wake up in the morning.
Yeah.
What are their fears? What is the status they're desperately trying to achieve, or protect within their peer group.
Exactly. And if we connect this to the bigger picture, this is precisely why the old getting the word out model fails so spectacularly today. The old model, the Don Draper model, says, I have a factory that makes a product. How do I make people want it?
Right, forcing the desire.
Yes. It assumes the product is fixed and the human mind is malleable. The new model flips that entirely. It says, people have a specific problem. How can I build a product or service that actually solves it? It requires working with your part of the market rather than doing things to them.
And let's be honest, that is significantly harder work. It's much easier to just yell at people than it is to understand them. This isn't some magic trick where you just think good thoughts and suddenly you're rich. There is a rigid, almost scientific process to this empathy.
There absolutely is.
You have to be willing to backtrack. You have to constantly redo your assumptions about what people actually want. You must adjust your offering. You must test it in the real world. You must measure the genuine reaction, not just clicks, but actual satisfaction. And you must repeat the cycle. It's a continuous, humbling loop of learning and serving.
It is the scientific method applied directly to empathy. You observe a group of people, you form a hypothesis about what might relieve their tension or improve their lives, you build a prototype or an offering, and you present it to them. And then, and this is the crucial part, you listen to their response. If it doesn't resonate, what do you do?
Well, under the old playbook, if it doesn't resonate, you just shout louder. You buy more ads. You lower the price and scream, "Sale!"
Exactly. But under the new playbook, if it doesn't resonate, you accept that your hypothesis was wrong. You don't blame the customer for not getting it. You change the offering. You adapt to them.
That is such a powerful distinction. If it doesn't resonate, you don't shout louder. You change the offering. The practical takeaway for anyone listening is that you must completely reframe how you view your marketing. It isn't a necessary evil you have to endure so you can get back to the real work. Marketing is the work. It's a calling to make a positive change. You have to step off the short-term hustle treadmill entirely.
You must insist on a long, viable path of service. Will it take longer to build a business this way? Yes. Will you go viral overnight? Probably not. But it is the only path that builds actual trust. And in a world where everyone is exhausted by spam and shouting, trust is the rarest, most valuable asset you can possess.
So let's synthesize all of this. If we bring together everything we've unpacked, from the fish in the water to the trap of the megaphone, to the shameful hiding, and finally to this new definition of empathy, what is the core truth we are walking away with?
It boils down to this. Marketing is fundamentally not an act of extraction. It is an act of contribution.
Yes. Extraction versus contribution.
Yeah.
If you're interrupting people while they're trying to live their lives, if you are scraping their data, if you are begging for their attention just to hit your quarterly goals, you aren't doing marketing. You are just making noise. You are polluting the cultural water we all have to swim in.
True marketing only happens when you humbly identify a specific group of people, a tribe, and align with them. You offer a genuine, effective solution to their problem. You take on the profound responsibility to change their culture, their daily experience, for the better. It's an incredibly generous act.
It really is.
But it requires you to be brave enough to step out of the shadows, overcome your shame, and say to them, I saw that you were struggling. I made this specifically for you, and I believe it will help.
It's about finding alignment, not forcing a fit. I love this visual from our notes earlier. It's not about being a hunter with a megaphone running through the woods, screaming at everything that moves. It's about being a beacon. You build a lighthouse, you turn the light on, and you stand firm. And the people who are lost in the dark, the people who are actively looking for the specific kind of light you are shining, they will find you.
That is a perfect metaphor. The beacon replaces the megaphone. A megaphone is aggressive, it pushes energy out, and demands compliance. A beacon is attractive, it offers guidance, and invites people in.
The beacon replaces the megaphone. That encapsulates this entire psychological shift. But keeping that beacon lit and making sure it's shining the right color for the right people requires us to ask much better, much deeper questions of ourselves before we ever spend a single dime on an advertisement or write a single line of promotional copy.
It required an absolute commitment to serving the audience before serving yourself.
Which leaves us with a tremendous amount of process. So as you wrap up this deep dive and head back out into your day, I want to leave you with one final provocative thought to mull over. We've established that true marketing is just generously helping someone solve their problem. So ask yourself, what is the real problem your audience is facing? The deep emotional tension they're experiencing that you have been completely ignoring because you are too busy trying to get the word out about your own features and benefits?
That is the most crucial question you can ask, because it forces you to stop looking in the mirror and start looking out the window at the people you actually want to serve.
Now that we know we need to stop shouting, put down the megaphone, and start solving, we have to learn how to actually recognize those problems. Join us on our next deep dive as we explore the mechanics of true empathy and discover how to observe the people we want to serve when the marketer learns to see. What if the biggest mistake you can make in your business or your project or, your art is simply trying to get the word out?
Yeah, that's a deeply uncomfortable thought right there.
Right.
It really is. I mean, it completely challenges the fundamental premise of basically every business school, curriculum, and startup accelerator out there.
Yeah, totally.
Because we are culturally conditioned to believe that volume equals success. Just shout louder.
And it feels incredibly dismissive
Hmm.
to anyone who has poured their soul into a creation. Like, wait, I shouldn't tell people about this.
Exactly. It feels wrong.
But today we're doing a deep dive into Chapter 2 of Seth Godin's book, This is Marketing. The chapter's called The Marketer Learns to See.
Right.
And we are going to break down why treating your customers as basically a resource to solve your company's problems is actually completely backward.
Totally backward.
Instead, we'll explore how true marketing has evolved into this really generous act. Like the act of seeing human dreams and designing a very specific change for a very specific group of people.
Which is huge.
It is. So if you ever felt like you're just begging for attention in a noisy world, this deep dive completely flips the script on how to become a welcomed, indispensable guide for the people you actually want to serve.
Yeah, and that's a monumental transition for anyone bringing an idea to the market. I mean, we have to essentially deprogram ourselves here.
Deprogram, I like that.
Well, because for decades, corporate behavior has been driven by this very industrial, almost militant mindset.
Yeah.
We need to unlearn the instinct to just buy a louder megaphone.
Right. Let's start right there with the origin of that megaphone instinct.
Yeah.
There's this really vivid snapshot of this from 1983 in the source material.
Oh, the Spinnaker software story.
Yes.
Yeah.
So Seth Godin is a young brand manager at this startup called Spinnaker Software. He's got his fresh business degree, and suddenly he is handed millions of dollars in budget.
Just massive amounts of cash.
Right. And he's being wined and dined by ad reps, taken to fancy lunches, and he possesses this burning, frantic desire to just, get his product in front of eyeballs.
Which is what you do when you have millions of dollars in a new product.
Exactly. He and his team built something they believed was amazing, and his entire worldview was basically, the world needs to know this exists, and I have the cash to make them look.
And, we have to give him credit here. In 1983, that was absolutely the correct playbook.
Was it?
Oh, yeah. That was the tail end of the whole Don Draper, David Ogilvy golden age of advertising.
Okay, right. Mad Men style.
Exactly. The entire ecosystem was built on trading capital for attention. Think about it. Back then, there were 3 major television networks.
Well, yeah. Only 3.
There were a handful of major magazines. Attention was basically a captive audience.
Right. You couldn't scroll past it.
Exactly. So you bought a full-page spread or 30 seconds of primetime air, and you just interrupted people. You literally bought their eyeballs.
The math was pretty simple then.
Brutally simple. If you shouted loudly enough to a wide enough demographic, a predictable percentage would eventually just buy the thing.
So it's like the ultimate brute force approach, just blanket the earth.
Yes, blanket the earth. But the trap we fall into today is believing that because the tools have changed, our philosophy has changed.
Oh, right. We think we're smarter now.
We think we're much more sophisticated.
Yeah.
But it hasn't changed at all. We just digitized the brute force.
Give me an example of that. Like, what does digital brute force look like?
Well, instead of buying a spot on network television, a founder today will hire an SEO specialist who promises to, game the Google algorithm so they rank first.
Right.
Or they'll hire social media consultants to hyper-target demographics and interrupt them mid-scroll on their feeds.
Plop it up in their videos.
Exactly. Or they'll retain these wildly expensive PR firms to land a quote in a major publication.
Mm-hmm.
And the dashboard looks incredibly sophisticated. Right?
Oh, yeah. You've got click-through rates, conversion funnels, heat maps.
Right, all the fancy metrics. But the underlying psychological mechanism is identical to 1983. It's still, how do I interrupt you, stop what you're doing, and force you to look at me?
Okay, I need to challenge this, though, because I'm putting myself in the shoes of, like, an everyday entrepreneur listening to this.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's say I just spent 2 agonizing years in my garage engineering a revolutionary new coffee maker.
A coffee maker. Love it.
Right, and I'm obsessed. I've taken out a second mortgage. I've lost sleep. I finally finish it, and it makes, honestly, the best cup of coffee on earth.
Okay.
My immediate visceral reaction is going to be, I need a megaphone. I need Facebook ads. I need a viral video. I need people to know I exist.
Sure.
So why is the megaphone the wrong tool? If the product is genuinely superior, isn't getting the word out my primary obligation?
It feels like an obligation because you are experiencing immense pressure.
Oh, totally. The second mortgage is breathing down my neck.
Right. But here is the harsh reality of that specific scenario. By reaching for the megaphone, you are fundamentally using consumers to solve your problem.
Wait, using consumers to solve my problem? I'm trying to give them great coffee.
You want to give them great coffee. Sure, that's the nice story you tell yourself.
Oh.
But your immediate pressing problem is that you have a garage full of inventory, you have that second mortgage, and you need cash flow to survive.
Yeah, that's true.
That is your problem. Your strategy, whether you admit it or not, is to find random people and extract their money to alleviate your financial anxiety.
Wow. Okay, when you put it like that, it sounds incredibly selfish.
It is. And the brutal truth of human psychology is that the market fundamentally does not care about your second mortgage.
Right.
They do not care about the 2 years you spent in the garage. They don't care about your engineering breakthroughs or your growth targets.
That is such a bitter pill for any creator to swallow. Because we naturally assume our passion is contagious, right?
We really do. We assume people are sitting around like these blank slates, just waiting to be interrupted by our brilliance.
Just waiting for my coffee maker to arrive and save the day.
Exactly. But they aren't. They are complex human beings, deeply embedded in their own lives.
Right.
They have their own overwhelming anxiety, their own financial pressures, their own goals, and just an absolute avalanche of noise in their heads already.
So when I blast them with an ad,
And you blast them with a megaphone, you are treating them as targets. You're treating them as victims of your promotional strategy rather than volunteers who might actually want to go on a journey with you.
Okay, so for the founder standing in their garage, surrounded by, hundreds of boxes of coffee makers, what is the practical shift here?
Yeah.
If they shouldn't hand their credit card to an ad consultant to, quote unquote, get the word out, what is the very first move?
The first move is a complete inversion of the question. You have to physically stop asking, how do I get the word out?
Okay, and replace it with what?
Replace it with, who can I help become a better version of themselves?
Who can I help become a better version of themselves? Man, that completely alters the DNA of the business relationship.
It really does.
It pivots the entire endeavor from extraction, like, what can I take from you, to hit my sales quota, to contribution.
Exactly.
What can I offer you to help you overcome a hurdle?
And that contribution is the definition of modern marketing. It is the generous act of helping someone solve a problem.
But critically, it's about solving their problem, not yours.
Yes, their problem. And this requires an almost painful level of empathy, a willingness to step outside your own ego and genuinely observe the market.
Which brings up a really stark realization about empathy. There's this line of thinking in the material that hit me hard.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it says, marketers must recognize that the people they want to serve do not want what the marketer wants.
Right.
They don't believe what the marketer believes, and they don't care about what the marketer cares about. And they probably never will.
It's deeply humbling because as creators, we all suffer from a terminal case of solipsism.
What do you mean by that?
We project our worldview onto everyone else. Going back to your coffee maker example, you spent 2 years obsessed with water temperature stability down to the decimal point, right?
Oh, yeah, burr grinder, micron sizes, pressure profiling, the works.
Right. You are a coffee aficionado. You naturally assume that anyone drinking coffee cares, or at least they should care, about those exact same technical specs.
Of course they should. It makes the coffee better.
But the vast majority of the world does not. They really don't.
I have a visual for this because I see it happen so often. It's like a craftsman spending years making this deeply complex, intricately carved, beautiful brass key.
Okay, I like this.
They polish it, they perfect the teeth, they admire their own handiwork in the shop.
Right.
And then once it's completely finished, they run out into the neighborhood, sweating and panicked, frantically trying to jam this beautiful key into every single door in the street.
Just praying they find a lock that it happens to turn.
Exactly.
Yes. Running from door to door, forcing a pre-made key. That is the absolute perfect embodiment of getting the word out.
It sounds so desperate when you say it like that.
Because it is. It's exhausting, it's invasive, and honestly, it has a terrible success rate.
But the alternative, true empathy,
Yeah.
means you have to study the lock first.
Yes.
Empathy is walking up to the door before you've built anything at all. Looking closely at the tumblers, understanding the friction of the mechanism,
Study it.
right, and then walking back to your workshop to forge a key that fits that specific lock perfectly.
Exactly.
But honestly, why is that so hard for us? Why do we default to carving the key first every single time?
It comes down to the sunk cost fallacy and ego. Making the key is fun.
Yeah, it's safe in the workshop.
Right. You control the environment in your workshop. Nobody is rejecting you in your garage.
That's so true.
Studying the lock is messy because it requires you to deal with other people's messy realities. It requires a psychological leap into this concept known as Sonder.
Sonder. Okay, let's unpack that because it feels central to this whole philosophy. What is Sonder?
So, Sonder is the profound realization that every random passerby you see on the street is living a life that is just as vivid, complex, and chaotic as your own.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they have their own internal cinematic universe playing in their head at all times.
Like their own movie where they are the star.
Exactly. They have their own perceived slights from their boss, their own fears about their kids, their own secret ambitions,
Right.
and their own definition of what a better day actually looks like.
So as someone trying to market a product, empathy means I have to pull up a chair and watch their movie for a while.
Yes.
Instead of kicking the door open, pausing their movie, and forcing them to watch a commercial for my coffee maker.
Precisely. Because in their movie, they are the main character. If your product doesn't naturally fit into the narrative arc they are already constructing for themselves, no amount of targeted Facebook ads will make them buy it.
Right, it will just annoy them.
Exactly. Let's look at their movie for a second. Maybe their internal narrative has absolutely nothing to do with perfect espresso extraction. Maybe their narrative is, I am a working parent who feels like I'm failing because my mornings are total chaos.
Oh, man.
Right. And I just need a massive jolt of caffeine in under 60 seconds so I don't lose my temper while packing lunches.
If that is their movie, and I come in shouting about micron sizes and thermal stability, I might as well be speaking ancient Greek.
You really are.
I'm actively irritating them.
Yeah.
I'm adding noise to their chaos.
You are doing marketing at them. Working with the market means identifying the emotional change they are already seeking.
In this case, the transition from chaotic stress to a brief moment of competent peace.
Exactly. And then positioning your product as the bridge to get them there. It's the difference between saying, look at my brilliant dual boiler engineering.
Which is about me.
Right. Versus saying, I see how stressful your mornings are. I built this machine to give you 5 minutes of guaranteed peace and a perfect cup of coffee without you having to make a single decision.
That is a massive practical shift. For anyone listening who's building something right now, the immediate homework is to write down the internal narrative of your ideal customer.
Yes, write it out.
What are they staring at the ceiling, worrying about at 2 a.m.? What is the specific flavor of their daily stress?
I love that phrase, the specific flavor of their daily stress.
Right. Because if you cannot articulate their worldview and their secret anxieties without mentioning your own product, you haven't done the empathy work yet.
That is a brilliant litmus test right there. If you ask a founder who their customer is and they say, oh, someone who needs robust accounting software.
Which is what everyone says.
Right. They have zero empathy. They're just describing a wallet attached to a technical need.
Ouch.
But if they say a small business owner who is terrified of an IRS audit because they secretly feel like an imposter who doesn't understand their own cash flow.
Oh, wow.
Now you're talking. Now you're seeing the lock.
Which fundamentally changes how you build the business from the ground up. And this leads to a concept that completely dismantles the traditional corporate structure, doesn't it?
It really does.
The idea is that marketing is not a department you hand a finished product to. Marketing is the actual design phase of the product itself.
This is the death of the old industrial model. The classic structure was always linear. The engineering team invents a gadget, right? The finance team figures out the margins, and then they literally toss it over the cubicle wall to the marketing department.
Good luck, guys.
Yeah. They say, all right, you have a budget of 50 grand.
Yeah.
Go find a way to sell this to people.
Go find some doors for this key we just spent millions developing.
Yes, and it's incredibly inefficient. The modern approach weaves the marketing narrative into the very first blueprint.
So marketing is happening before the product even exists.
Exactly. The process begins with inventing a thing actually worth making. If the product doesn't solve a deeply felt problem for a specific group of people, all the clever copywriting and viral TikTok dances in the world will not save it.
So the product itself has to be the
The
marketing.
product is the marketing.
Okay, but then the framework introduces a step that causes, visceral panic for a lot of entrepreneurs.
Oh, I know what you're going to say.
The mandate is to design and build this product in a way that a few people will particularly benefit from and care about.
Yes.
The few,
I have to push back hard here on behalf of anyone who has ever pitched a startup.
go for it.
If I walk into a room of venture capitalists or angel investors and say, I have designed this product to appeal to a very small, select few people,
Right.
I'm going to get laughed out of the room.
You probably will.
They want to see a massive total addressable market, a TAM in the billions. Why on earth would I intentionally shrink my audience?
Because chasing a massive TAM on day one is a trap. It is a trap that leads directly to mediocrity.
Really?
This is the concept of the smallest viable market, and it is arguably the most counterintuitive strategy in modern business.
Smallest viable. Usually it's minimum viable product, right?
Yeah.
The smallest viable market.
Exactly. When you try to make something for everyone, you are designing for the center of the bell curve. And the center of the bell curve is just average.
It's the literal definition of average. Think about it. To make a product that won't offend the busy parent and satisfies the coffee snob and fits the budget of the college student and works in a corporate break room,
You have to make a million compromises.
you have to compromise on every single feature. You sand off all the interesting edges, the product becomes bland, the story becomes generic,
You just become a commodity.
you become a commodity. And in a digital age where consumers have infinite choices one click away, nobody crosses the street to buy something average.
That makes a lot of sense. If you're average, you have to compete purely on price.
Right.
And that's just a race to the bottom until you go out of business.
Exactly. But let's look at the alternative, the smallest viable market. What if you deliberately focus on a tiny, incredibly specific group of people?
Okay?
What if you build that coffee maker exclusively for people who live in tiny studio apartments, value extreme minimalist aesthetics, and only drink light roast single origin beans?
Okay, you're shrinking the market down to a microscopic fraction at that point.
Yes, but by focusing on that tiny group, you are forced to understand them intimately. You can build a machine that is so perfectly tailored to their weird, specific niche desires that they don't just like it.
Right.
They view it as a miracle. They feel like you read their diary.
I see. So instead of trying to convince 10,000 people to sort of tolerate your product, you are trying to find 100 people who will riot in the streets if you ever take it away from them.
That is the exact dynamic. And here is how it survives contact with real-world capitalism for all those VCs you were worried about.
Yeah. How does this make money?
Those 100 people who view your product as a miracle, they become your evangelists.
Ooh.
Because your product fits their internal movie so perfectly, it becomes part of their identity.
Right, they show it off.
They brag about it, they force their friends to try it, they make videos about it online without you even asking. That is how genuine, sustainable growth happens today.
It's organic.
It doesn't come from a top-down corporate megaphone. It comes from the inside out, starting with a fiercely loyal core of true believers who finally feel seen.
It's terrifying to do, but it makes so much sense. Shrink your target audience. Keep shrinking it. When you think it's narrow enough, shrink it again.
Keep going.
Keep going until your offering becomes absolutely essential and irreplaceable for that specific group. Be the absolute best in the world for a micro community, rather than mediocre for the masses.
And once you've defined that tiny group, you have to understand the invisible forces that actually drive their buying decisions.
Okay, what are those forces?
Well, this brings us to the twin engines of human behavior, according to the text: status and the scarcity of attention.
Let's spend some time on this because rethinking status completely blew my mind.
It's a game changer.
Usually when we hear the word status, we think of glaring wealth. We think of a billionaire buying a mega yacht or someone flashing a diamond-encrusted Rolex.
Right, Robin Leach stuff.
Yeah, or a teenager buying a $500 Supreme t-shirt. Yeah. Feels incredibly superficial and ego-driven.
That's the colloquial understanding of it, sure, but it's a very limited view. Status isn't just about luxury or wealth. It is a fundamental survival mechanism wired into our evolution.
Survival mechanism.
Yeah. Status is our self-perceived understanding of our role in any given interaction. It's about our position within our tribe.
Okay.
Subconsciously, we're constantly asking, are we safe? Are we respected? Are we falling behind?
So it's not just the desire to dominate others, it's also the desire to simply belong.
Precisely. Status is often divided into two drives: dominance and affiliation.
Added.
Dominance is the desire to be the alpha, to be clearly better than the rest, but affiliation is the desire to fit in perfectly, to be accepted by the group, to not be the outcast. Both are incredibly powerful status plays.
I always looked at sneaker culture among teenagers as just pure consumerism. But if you frame it as a status survival tactic, it totally changes. Think about a high school freshman agonizing over which shoes to wear on the first day of school.
Oh, the pressure.
Right. They aren't reading orthopedic reviews to find the best arch support.
Definitely not.
They are paralyzed by an internal status question. If I wear these shoes, do I look like I belong with the group I want to be in?
Right.
Does this signal to the right people that I am safe to associate with? Or do I risk being ostracized and bullied?
That teenager is making a high-stakes calculation about their social survival. The shoes are just the vehicle for the status.
Wow.
And what's fascinating is that we don't outgrow this. It just takes different forms in adulthood.
Give me a professional example.
Let's look at a B2B example, which people often assume is purely rational and data-driven.
Right, business to business is supposed to be all logic.
Supposed to be. Imagine a middle manager, let's call her Sarah. Sarah needs to pitch a new enterprise software solution to her vice president.
Okay, and let's say the VP is famously skeptical of new tech, loves the old legacy systems, and just hates spending money.
Exactly. So the software company selling to Sarah might think they just need to show her a spreadsheet, proving their software is 20% faster and saves $10,000 a quarter.
Just give her the logic.
Right. But Sarah isn't making a purely rational calculation here. She is facing a massive status risk.
Because if she pitches this and the VP hates it, or worse, the software fails during implementation, she looks like a fool.
She loses credibility. She might lose her chance at a promotion. Her status in the corporate tribe plummets.
That's terrifying for her.
But conversely, if it succeeds, she looks like an innovative visionary. Her status skyrockets. The software company isn't just selling code. They're asking Sarah to gamble her personal professional status.
That is such a vital insight for anyone doing B2B marketing. If you are just screaming about your dashboard features, you are completely ignoring Sarah's actual visceral fear.
Right.
You are ignoring her lock.
A smart marketer recognizes Sarah's status risk and engineers the marketing to mitigate it. They don't just sell software, they sell safety.
Oh, I like that. Sell safety.
They might say, hey, we provide you with a comprehensive, bulletproof slide deck to present to your VP, complete with case studies from competitors so you look incredibly prepared and strategic.
So they are marketing directly to her desire to elevate her status and avoid looking foolish.
Yes. And this ties directly into the other half of this equation, the scarcity of attention.
Because Sarah doesn't have the time or the cognitive bandwidth to evaluate 50 different software vendors, her attention is completely fractured.
None of us have the bandwidth. We are bombarded by thousands of commercial messages a day.
Right, it's overwhelming.
To survive this cognitive overload, our brains use heuristics, mental shortcuts, and status is the ultimate shortcut.
How so?
When you look at a product or a pitch, our brain subconsciously asks, does this thing help me achieve the status I want or protect the status I currently have? If the answer isn't immediately, intuitively yes, we tune it out. We don't even process it. It just becomes more background noise.
So the actionable takeaway for you listening right now is to perform a status audit on whatever it is you are putting out into the world.
Yes, audit it.
Look at your website copy, your sales pitch, your packaging. Are you just listing logical features? Like, our accounting firm is highly accurate and uses the latest software.
Which is boring.
Boring and ignorable. Or are you speaking to the hidden status anxieties of your client? Like, we make you the most financially unshakable, confident leader in your industry, so you never have to sweat a board meeting again.
Huge difference.
You have to make it explicitly clear how you are protecting or elevating them.
Which brings us to the final major shift required to truly see the market. And this might be the most critical distinction for long-term survival, separating your strategy from your tactics.
This is a huge one, because strategy and tactics have just melted together into meaningless corporate buzzwords.
They really have.
People use them interchangeably in every meeting. Oh, our strategy is social media. No, your tactic is social media. But the difference is profound.
Very.
The premise here is your tactics can make a difference, but your strategy can change everything. How do we actually pull these two concepts apart in the real world?
It's easier if we look at their lifespan.
Lifespans, okay.
Tactics are short-term.
Yeah.
They are the specific, actionable tools you use on any given Tuesday to execute a task.
Right.
They are the algorithms you are trying to hack, the specific social media platforms you post on, the subject line of your email newsletter, or, jumping on a trending audio clip on TikTok.
So they are fleeting
Tactics are inherently temporary and highly volatile.
because they rely on platforms you don't control.
Yeah.
I'm thinking back to a few years ago when Facebook abruptly announced that their algorithm was going to heavily favor video content over written articles.
Oh, yeah, the famous pivot to video. What a disaster.
Right. Entire digital media companies, publishers who had built massive audiences through written articles, panicked.
They completely flipped out.
They fired their writers, they hired video producers, and they completely changed their output just to please the Facebook algorithm.
Just chasing the tactic.
And then a year or two later, the algorithm shifted again. The video metrics turned out to be flawed, and those companies were decimated. They vanished overnight.
That is the perfect cautionary tale. Those media companies confused a tactic, which was gaming the Facebook newsfeed, with a strategy.
So what is a strategy then?
A strategy is not a tool. A strategy is a long-term beacon. It is your foundational commitment to a way of being.
Okay.
It is the core promise you are making to your audience about the change you want to help them achieve.
So the strategy is the destination you are promising to take the customer to, and the tactic is just the rental car you happen to be driving today to get there.
Exactly. That's a great way to put it. If you have a solid strategy, the tactics are interchangeable. If one car breaks down, you just rent another one. But if you don't have a strategy, if you don't have a clear, generous promise to a specific group of people, then all the tactics in the world just turn you into a highly optimized annoyance.
You become very, very efficient at yelling into the void.
Precisely.
Let's ground this with an example. What does a durable strategy look like versus a fleeting tactic?
Let's say you run an organization that helps independent musicians. Your strategy might be, we empower independent artists to bypass traditional industry gatekeepers so they can make a sustainable living directly from their most passionate fans.
Oh, I like that. That is a powerful, clear, emotional strategy. It's a promise of a specific change.
Right.
Okay, so how do the tactics serve that over time?
Well, 15 years ago, the tactic to execute that strategy might have been teaching musicians how to set up a MySpace page and burn CDs.
Wow, throwback.
Right. 10 years ago, the tactic shifted to building an email list and launching a Kickstarter.
Okay.
5 years ago, it was setting up a Patreon. Today, the tactic might be creating short-form vertical video and running a private Discord server.
The technological vehicles completely turn over 4 or 5 times.
Yes, the tools changed radically. But the strategy empowering the independent artist to own their audience never wavered for a single second.
That makes total sense.
The strategy survived the death of MySpace, the decline of CDs, and all those algorithm changes because the company wasn't anchored to the tool, they were anchored to the promise.
I love this thought experiment for anyone listening. Write down the core promise of your business or your project right now. But you are not allowed to mention the medium or the platform you currently use to deliver it.
It's hard to do.
It is. If your primary acquisition channel, let's say Instagram, which drives 80% of your sales, was permanently deleted from the internet tomorrow morning, what is the underlying strategy that would allow your business to pivot, find a new platform, and survive?
Right.
If you can't articulate that, you are just a hostage to a tactic.
And separating the two requires an immense amount of emotional discipline.
Why is it so emotional?
Because tactics provide immediate gratification. You try a new TikTok hook, you get a dopamine hit when the view count spikes.
Oh, for sure.
You tweak an email headline, and the open rate jumps by 2%. It feels like progress.
It feels like you're winning.
But strategy, on the other hand, requires patience. It requires committing to a specific change over the long haul, sticking to the smallest viable market even when you're tempted to go broad, and ignoring the daily fluctuations of vanity metrics.
We've covered incredible paradigm-shifting ground today.
We really have.
From abandoning the 1983 megaphone to the deep empathy of Sonder, the terror of shrinking your market, the survival mechanics of status, and anchoring to strategy over tactics.
It's a lot to process.
It is. As we synthesize all of this, if we have to distill the soul of this philosophy into one overarching insight, what is the ultimate takeaway from The Marketer Learns to See?
The profound realization is that you do not learn to see the market by staring at conversion funnels, spreadsheet data, or the reach of your megaphone. You learn to see by recognizing and deeply respecting the customer's fundamental humanity.
Humanity.
When you develop the empathy to see the movie playing in their heads, when you understand the quiet status fears that keep them up at night, and when you recognize their dreams for becoming a better version of themselves, everything flips.
A whole game changes.
You stop desperately trying to get the word out to solve your own inventory problems, and you start generously inviting the right people in to solve theirs.
You stop obsessing over the brass key you carved in isolation, and you finally start designing for the exact lock they are holding out to you.
It is the shift from being a nuisance to becoming indispensable.
So I want to leave you with a thought to mull over. Think about the last thing you bought, a product, a course, a service that you truly deeply loved, something that made you feel a sense of relief or joy or made you feel incredibly capable.
Yeah, think about that feeling.
Did the company behind it interrupt you with a selfish megaphone, yelling at you to look at them? Or did they somehow, almost magically, see exactly who you were struggling to become and simply offer you the bridge?
That's the real question.
Because once you learn how to look at the market with that kind of genuine empathy, and you start seeing the world exactly as they see it, the next obvious question is, how do you actually spark that transformation?
Right.
How do you take that attention and turn it into action? Next time, we're doing a deep dive into Chapter 3, where we will explore how you can fundamentally change people through the specific stories, connections, and experiences they're desperately craving. Think about the last time you bought something really expensive. Like, put yourself right back in that moment.
Oh, that can be a dangerous game to play.
Right. But just try it. Maybe it was a car, like a brand new $50,000 luxury SUV.
Okay, I'm picturing it.
Put yourself right back in that dealership showroom. The lights are gleaming off the hood. The salesperson is, hovering nearby.
Always hovering.
Always. Now, did you buy that specific vehicle because it mathematically possessed the most features for the absolute lowest price?
Definitely not.
I mean, did you pull out a spreadsheet on your phone and calculate the exact cost per cubic inch of cargo space?
No one does that.
No one. Did you run an algorithm on the aerodynamic efficiency versus the sticker price?
I highly doubt it.
Right. Or, if we're being completely honest here, did you buy it because of an irrational, invisible force?
That's the real question.
Did you buy it because of how the heavy, vault-like thud of the door closing made you feel incredibly safe? Or maybe because of how you imagined your neighbors or your coworkers might look at you when you pulled it into the driveway?
It is almost never the spreadsheet. I mean, we are remarkably, almost frighteningly skilled at retroactively justifying our emotional decisions with logic and data.
Oh, totally. We tell ourselves it was for the gas mileage.
Exactly. But the emotion is always the entity sitting in the driver's seat. So today, we're exploring a fundamental paradigm shift. We're looking at how marketing isn't a race to the bottom for price or, a desperate scramble to add more features.
Right.
But rather, it's a profound quest to make change happen through stories, connections, and experiences. For anyone out there listening who is interested in business, entrepreneurship, or even simply understanding the hidden levers of human behavior, this matters deeply.
It really does.
Because if you don't understand the internal, unspoken narrative of the people you are seeking to serve, your absolute best ideas, your most innovative products, well, they will simply be ignored.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because if you are tuning into this deep dive right now, and you've ever felt that crushing frustration that your truly great idea, your objectively superior product, just isn't catching on, you need to hear this.
Yeah, it's a tough spot to be in.
It is. We are pulling apart the core concepts of Chapter 3 from Seth Godin's This is Marketing. And honestly, it completely flips the script on how we try to persuade people. We live in a business culture that is just pathologically obsessed with the features of what we make.
Oh, 100%.
But people, the actual humans buying these things, they only care about the story and the feeling. That is the secret to actually making an impact.
To truly grasp the magnitude of this disconnect, we have to look at what happens when the absolute most logical, rational, mathematically undeniable product collides with the messy reality of human behavior.
I love this example.
The source text gives us this perfect, incredibly grounding example of this phenomenon. It's a case study involving a fascinating organization called Vision Spring.
Vision Spring. Yeah. This is a social enterprise with a mission that on paper sounds like an absolute no-brainer.
It really does.
They are trying to sell extremely affordable reading glasses to the roughly 1 billion people around the developing world who desperately need them but just don't have access to them.
Right.
And the author of our source text actually traveled to a remote village in India with a team from Vision Spring to watch this initiative play out on the ground.
Which is such a valuable perspective.
You picture the scene, right?
Yeah.
The dust, the heat, a community of hardworking people, and this team arriving with a literal box of miracles.
And if you look at this from a purely rational, classical economics standpoint, this should be the easiest, most frictionless sale in the history of commerce.
You would think so.
I mean,
Yeah.
you have a demographic of people, weavers, artisans, farmers, who are literally losing their ability to work, to read, to sustain their families. And why? Simply because their eyes are aging.
Right, it's presbyopia.
Exactly. It happens to everyone. So you show up with a pair of reading glasses that instantly, almost magically, restores their vision.
Just pop them on and they can see.
And you are offering this tool for a tiny fraction of what they might earn in a single week once they can get back to work. I mean, the utility is astronomical.
The math is undeniable.
The return on investment is immediate and undeniable.
Right, and this is where I have to step in and push back a little bit on behalf of anyone listening who might be as utterly confused as I was when I first read this section.
Please do.
Because if someone literally cannot see, shouldn't the sheer utility of the glasses be enough?
You'd assume so.
I mean, why does a narrative or a story even matter when the physical need is so blindingly obvious?
It's a great question.
If I'm a marketer or an entrepreneur, and I have the undeniable scientific cure to your exact problem, why do I have to dress it up in some psychological narrative? Doesn't the product just sell itself at that point?
It is a highly logical question, and honestly, it's the exact trap that thousands of well-meaning businesses fall into every single day.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. The flaw in that logic is that it completely ignores the fundamental reality of what it is like to be a human being. What the author realized on that dusty road in India is that every single person has a narrative.
A narrative.
Yes, they have a continuous running story in their head that they use to navigate and make sense of the world around them.
So what does that actually look like for the villager in this scenario?
Well, for the villager, they have a deeply ingrained narrative about what it actually means to lose their sight. Maybe their internal narrative is that failing eyesight is a natural, dignified, inevitable part of aging.
Oh, I see. Like a rite of passage almost.
Exactly. Maybe it is a sign from the universe or from their culture that it is finally time to stop working, to step back, and to rely on their children for support. Or, entirely differently, maybe their narrative is that buying a weird plastic contraption from a fast-talking stranger who just rolled into the village well, that's a very quick way to get scammed.
And look like a fool in front of their neighbors.
Precisely.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
So the glasses aren't just a physical piece of curved glass and plastic to them. They represent a massive, potentially threatening shift in their entire worldview.
That is the crux of the issue. Now contrast that with the marketer from the West who arrives in that village.
They come in with their clipboards and spreadsheets.
They arrive with a completely different, highly formalized narrative.
Mm-hmm.
The marketer's story is something like, I have identified a biological deficit. I have brought an efficient technological solution. Let us execute a rapid transaction to maximize economic efficiency and improve your GDP.
Very clinical, very dry.
Very. But what we absolutely must understand is that the marketer's narrative is not inherently better or more universally true than the villager's narrative.
It's just different.
It is just a different story, born from a different culture. And as the text heavily emphasizes, it is profoundly arrogant to insist that your customer must abandon their lifelong, deeply held narrative and instantly adopt your clinical transactional one.
Just because you have a product you want to sell them.
Right.
Arrogant. That is a heavy word to throw at a well-meaning charity worker or a passionate entrepreneur, but it actually fits perfectly.
It really does. You can't just bulldoze someone's reality.
It makes me think of an analogy. It's like trying to feed a toddler a plate of steamed broccoli.
Okay, walk me through that.
Okay, so you can sit there at the kitchen table and explain the nutritional value, right?
Yeah.
You can talk about the vitamin K, the fiber content, the sheer biological utility of the broccoli all day long.
You can show them the peer-reviewed studies.
Exactly. You can show the toddler a chart of human digestion. But to the toddler, their internal narrative is incredibly simple. Their narrative is, this is a weird, bitter, gross green thing that I do not want in my mouth.
And no amount of data will change that.
None. So unless you change the narrative, unless you fly the broccoli in like an airplane or turn them into little trees for a hungry giant dinosaur, they are not going to eat it.
That's a brilliant way to look at it.
You haven't changed the product. The broccoli is exactly the same. You've just changed the story to match the specific audience you are trying to serve.
The utility is identical, but the enrollment is entirely different. That is a fantastic way to frame it. Making things better, actually causing positive change in the market, requires caring enough to actually imagine the story they need to hear.
Caring enough. I like that.
And to do that, the text introduces this incredibly beautiful, almost philosophical concept called sonder.
Yes. Sonder. I had never heard this word before reading the source material, but it immediately struck a chord with me.
It's a powerful word. Sonder is defined as the profound realization that every random passerby you see has an internal life that is as rich, as conflicted, as complex, and as noisy as your own.
Oh, that's deep.
Think about being stuck in gridlock traffic. You look over at the car idling next to you. The driver gripping the steering wheel, well, they might be going through the most devastating divorce of their life.
Or they might have just found out they were going to be a parent.
Or they might be desperately worried about paying rent. They are the absolute main character of their own movie.
Everyone is the star of their own show.
Everyone thinks they're right. Everyone has fears, hidden desires, and a long, complicated history.
And as marketers or business owners or creators, we usually treat those people in the other cars as extras.
Just background characters.
Yeah, we treat them as data points.
Yeah.
We assume they are just blank slates waiting to be amazed by our new software feature or our new shoe design.
We assume our product is the most important thing in their world, when in reality, it doesn't even register as a footnote in their internal monologue.
A footnote. That's so true.
That is the true synthesis of this Vision Spring realization. We need to be generous enough to share a story that aligns with their internal noise, so they can take an action that they are proud of.
Notice the phrasing there.
Yeah.
Not an action we are proud of, like making a sale or hitting a quarterly target, but an action they're proud of.
Exactly. If the villager in India is going to buy those glasses, they need the narrative to make them feel like a wise, capable provider making a smart, modern choice for their family's future.
Right, not like a foolish victim being sold a strange gadget by an arrogant outsider.
Precisely.
So the obvious question becomes, how do we actually do that?
The million-dollar question.
Right. How do we stop yelling about the vitamins in the broccoli and actually uncover their internal narratives? I mean, we can't read minds.
You don't have to read minds, but you do have to read behavior. And you have to listen with radical empathy.
Radical empathy.
You uncover their narrative by looking at what else they buy. You read the obscure forums they frequent. You analyze the exact language they use when they complain about your competitors.
Oh, the complaint language is a goldmine.
It really is. If you are selling software to accountants and they constantly use words like drowning, panicked, and overwhelmed on message boards, well, their narrative isn't about wanting faster processing speeds.
No, it's not about the tech at all.
Their narrative is about survival. It's about the fear of making a catastrophic mistake. You find the narrative by paying attention to the emotion behind their actions, not just the actions themselves.
So, to the listener out there right now, building a brand or launching a project, the practical takeaway here is a serious gut check.
It really is.
Are you arrogantly forcing your clinical, feature-heavy narrative onto your audience? Are you just reciting specs? Or are you empathetic enough to understand the story they're already telling themselves and generous enough to build a bridge to it?
And once we accept this, once we realize that even a life-changing, vision-restoring medical tool requires a carefully crafted narrative to be adopted, it completely shatters our long-held illusion of the rational consumer.
It shatters it completely. Which brings us perfectly back to the scenario you painted in the opening hook about the luxury SUV.
Right, the $50,000 spreadsheet.
Because if buying a pair of reading glasses that you physically need to survive and feed your family isn't a purely rational transaction, then buying a $50,000 piece of depreciating metal certainly isn't.
It scales perfectly. Think about it. If a massive, life-altering financial commitment, like a $50,000 vehicle, is driven almost entirely by irrational forces, what chance does a $2 stick of gum have of being a purely rational purchase?
Not at all.
What chance does a bottle of perfume have? Or a B2B enterprise software subscription?
Zero. Absolutely none.
Human beings do not make decisions on a spreadsheet.
This is the part that blows my mind when I look at the broader business landscape. I look at thousands of companies, from startups to massive corporations, and I see so much time, energy, and capital being poured into tweaking minor specifications.
Oh, they obsess over it.
Companies are absolutely terrified. They sit in these endless meetings over cutting the retail price by 2% or makes the smartphone battery last exactly 4 minutes longer.
Or finding a way to cram one more bullet point onto the back of the packaging.
Exactly. They spend all this time trying to win a logic puzzle,
Mhm.
totally ignoring the irrational human element that actually drives the swipe of the credit card. Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Why is that? Why is the corporate world so terrified of leaning into the irrational?
They are terrified because the irrational is inherently vulnerable.
Vulnerable how?
Specifications are incredibly safe. Math is safe. If your product fails in the market and you are competing purely on technical specs, you have a built-in scapegoat.
Oh, you can just point the finger?
You can sit in the boardroom and blame the engineering department, or blame a disruption in the global supply chain, or say,
Right.
well, the competitor dropped their price by $1, it was just a pricing anomaly.
Just a math problem that wasn't solved correctly.
Exactly. But if you choose to compete on narrative, if you boldly promise to make someone feel a certain way, to elevate their social status, to give them a profound sense of belonging, and your product fails,
That's on you.
that is a failure of empathy.
Ouch. That hurts a lot more than a math error.
It means you didn't actually understand your customer. It means you looked at them and you guessed wrong about what was in their heart. That is deeply uncomfortable for a lot of data-driven business leaders.
Yeah, that requires emotional intelligence, not just analytical intelligence.
It's so much easier to hide behind a spreadsheet and say, but our battery is bigger.
It is easier, but as you're saying, it is a losing strategy. Marketing is not a race to add more features for less money.
No, it is a quest to make change on behalf of those we serve by understanding those irrational forces. A $50,000 SUV is not bought for transportation. That is the fundamental truth.
Right, if you just want transportation, you buy something else.
A used, reliable, $5,000 sedan provides transportation from point A to point B.
So what is the SUV bought for?
The SUV is bought for the visceral feeling of dominance when looking down at other cars on the road. It is bought for the feeling of impregnable safety for one's children. It is bought for the silent signaling of wealth and status to the neighbors when it's parked in the driveway.
The car is merely a $50,000 delivery mechanism for an emotion.
Exactly.
So the actionable takeaway for anyone listening who is building a brand, writing copy, or designing a product right now is to stop competing on specs and price.
It's a race to the bottom.
As the old saying goes, the problem with a race to the bottom is that you might actually win.
And then you're stuck there.
Right, you're stuck at the bottom, operating on razor-thin margins with zero brand loyalty, because the second someone else is a penny cheaper, your customer is gone. You have to acknowledge and lean into the irrational forces driving your specific customer.
But acknowledging the irrational forces is only half the battle.
Okay, what's the other half?
To actually utilize them, we have to decode the why. We have to dig past the surface-level request to find the psychological driver. There is a famous adage in marketing that illustrates this, but our source text takes it a crucial step further.
Oh, I know where you're going with this.
I'm talking, of course, about the quarter-inch drill bit.
We have to talk about the drill bit. Theodore Levitt, the legendary Harvard marketing professor, famously said, people don't want to buy a quarter-inch drill bit. They want a quarter-inch hole.
It's marketing 101.
We've all heard it a million times. It is the ultimate classic lesson in features versus benefits. You don't sell the twisted piece of titanium, you sell the hole in the wood. But, as you said, Godin pushes this way past basic utility into deep psychology, right?
He does, and it's vital that we follow that thread. Levitt's quote is brilliant, but it only gets us out of the factory and into the hardware store aisle.
Okay, I like that framing.
It shifts the focus from the physical product to the immediate practical utility. But Godin challenges us to keep asking why, like a relentless interrogator. Why do they want the quarter-inch hole in the first place?
Okay, let's play this out because I love this exercise. I'll be the customer.
Perfect.
I want the quarter-inch hole so I can put a raw plug in it, put a screw in, and hang up a new shelf on my living room wall.
And why do you desperately want to put up a shelf this weekend?
Because my living room is a complete disaster area. There are books, magazines, and knickknacks all over the coffee table on the floor. I want to put everything away and clear the clutter.
And why is it so important for that room to look tidy?
Let's be real. If I'm buying a drill bit on a Tuesday afternoon, I'm not having an existential crisis. I just want the room clean. Are we overcomplicating a simple hardware store errand?
We aren't overcomplicating it. We are uncovering the subconscious drive that the customer themselves might not even articulate. Even mundane errands are driven by emotional states. When the room is a mess, how does it make you feel when you sit on the couch?
Fair point. When it's a mess, I feel chaotic. I feel stressed. I feel like I'm failing at being an adult, honestly.
Right.
When it's tidy, I feel in control of my environment. Plus, my in-laws are coming over this weekend, and I don't want them to judge me or think I live like a slob.
And there it is, the emotional bedrock.
Wow.
If we map out this profound psychological chain reaction, we see the real transaction taking place. The customer does not want a drill bit
They don't even really want a hole in the wall.
or a wooden shelf.
Mm-hmm.
What they are actually buying is the feeling of safety, control over their environment, and the respect and validation of their peers and family when they come over to visit.
The respect of the in-laws.
Exactly. Therefore, when you are the marketer or the salesperson selling that drill bit, the ultimate end state you are delivering is not a hole in the drywall. You are delivering a feeling of safety and respect.
That is just wild to think about. A piece of metal is actually a conduit for respect. Let's apply this to the listener's world, because this isn't just for consumer hardware.
Oh, it applies everywhere.
Think about this for your own business. Let's say you're a B2B entrepreneur. You might think, well, I sell enterprise accounting software. There's no deep emotion in tax ledgers. It's just math.
People say that all the time.
Yes, there is. You think you are selling automated ledgers, API integrations, and tax compliance algorithms.
But what are you actually selling?
What you are actually selling is the feeling of being a responsible, untroubled provider who can sleep soundly on a Sunday night, instead of lying awake at 2 a.m. panicking about an unexpected IRS audit destroying their company.
That is the perfect translation.
It's powerful.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it leads to a core mantra from the text. People don't want what you make. They want what it will do for them. They want the way it will make them feel.
They want the way it will make them feel.
Yes, when you truly internalize that you are selling Sunday night peace of mind and not just an API integration, the entire framing of your business radically transforms.
The way you write your website copy changes.
The imagery you use changes.
The way you train your sales team to talk to customers on the phone changes.
Absolutely. You start boring them to death with bullet points about cloud storage limits, and you start talking directly to their desire for peace of mind.
So the mechanical practical takeaway here is to do the 5 whys exercise.
Yeah.
Take whatever your product or service is and act like an annoying 5-year-old.
Just keep asking why.
Ask, why does the customer want this? And whatever the answer is, ask why again. Do it 5 times until you strip away all the physical utility and hit the emotional bedrock. Trace your product down to its ultimate emotional end state.
And when you do hit that emotional bedrock, when you finally scrape away all the features and benefits, you are going to make a very surprising and frankly, very liberating discovery.
Oh, what's that?
You will find that human beings are actually not that complex.
Really?
Well, in this context, no, there aren't actually that many core feelings to choose from. The menu of human emotions that drive these market behaviors is remarkably finite.
That's right. The text lists these foundational desires, and it's surprisingly short.
It's basically a single page.
We're talking about things like the desire for belonging, the desire for connection, the craving for peace of mind, the pursuit of status,
A need for affection.
the instinct to avoid new and scary things, or, conversely, the thrill of adventure. That's basically the whole menu.
It is a finite menu, and the profound realization here is that most marketers, whether they are selling a $40 million private jet, a $100 pair of running sneakers, or even running a national political campaign, they are actually delivering the exact same feelings from that short menu.
Wait, really? The same feelings?
Yes, we just use vastly different products, different services, and different stories to deliver those feelings to different groups of people in different moments of their lives. The product itself is simply the paved road we build to help the customer travel toward that desired emotion.
I find this concept so liberating. If you are an entrepreneur, you don't have to be a mad scientist. You don't have to invent a brand new human emotion that no one has ever felt before.
That would be exhausting.
It would. You just have to figure out how to be the best, most frictionless bridge to an existing emotion for a very specific group of people, which naturally brings up the 2 most vital focusing questions from the text: who's it for and what's it for?
Those two questions are the ultimate compass for any project. Who's it for? Forces you to get uncomfortably specific. It forces you to abandon the cowardly idea of the mass market.
Because everyone doesn't agree on anything.
Exactly. You are not making a product for everyone. You are making it for a specific group of people who share a specific worldview and a specific set of fears. And what's it forces you to identify exactly which emotional change from that finite menu you are trying to make happen.
Let me test this with an example. Let's say I am selling a $10,000 mechanical luxury watch.
Okay, classic example.
Who's it for? Well, definitely not for everyone. It's for a very specific subset of people who care deeply about heritage, legacy, craftsmanship, and subtly signaling their financial success to their peers. What's it for? It's for establishing dominance, or belonging to an elite club, or securing status when they walk into a high-stakes boardroom. It is absolutely 100% not for telling the time.
No, of course not.
My cheap smartphone tells the time with perfect atomic accuracy. If it was about telling time, the luxury watch industry would have died 20 years ago.
You're hitting on the exact vulnerability of the feature-based mindset. And look at the flip side. If you are selling a rugged, rubberized digital smartwatch with GPS and a heart rate monitor, it's for a totally different who and a totally different what.
Very true.
It's for someone who wants to signal to the world and to themselves that they are active, adventurous, disciplined, and part of a modern, tech-forward, health-conscious tribe.
But it's the exact same basic utility. A thing on your wrist that tells the time.
But it represents entirely different emotional deliverables from that finite menu.
So the takeaway for our listeners here is to literally look at that finite menu of human feelings. Belonging, peace of mind, status, safety, adventure. Look at your project, your startup, your podcast, whatever it is, and identify exactly which core feeling you are actually delivering.
Because if you don't know which feeling you are selling, your customers definitely won't know.
And they will just move on to someone who does.
Now, once you have identified that core feeling, the next logical hurdle is execution. How do you actually deliver it? And the text is very clear. We do not need shiny digital shortcuts.
No quick fixes.
We don't need to chase the latest social media algorithm hack or buy fake followers or use manipulative scarcity countdown timers on our websites.
Those are the worst.
They are. We have 3 timeless, incredibly potent, fundamentally human tools at our disposal: stories, connections, and experiences.
These are the big 3. This is the actual toolkit for making change happen. Let's break these down mechanically so the listener can actually use them. Let's start with stories. I know we throw the word storytelling around constantly in the business world. It's become a bit of a buzzword. But what does it actually mean in this context?
A story, in this specific marketing context, is the cohesive narrative we offer the customer that allows them to make sense of the emotional change we are offering. It is the framing.
Okay.
But the text is absolute on one unbreakable rule. The story must be true. And I don't just mean factually, legally true in a way that satisfies a compliance lawyer.
What do you mean by true then?
I mean authentically true, because our actions, our manufacturing processes, and our customer interactions make it true in the real world.
Give me an example of how a story fails that test.
Sure. If you launch a brand and you tell a beautiful, poetic story about being a bespoke, high-quality, artisanal company that deeply cares about the individual customer.
Sounds great so far.
But then, in reality, your product breaks after a week of normal use, and when the customer tries to get help, your customer service is an endless, frustrating, automated phone tree that makes it impossible to speak to a human.
Oh, that is so infuriating.
Well, your story is a lie. It's a facade. And the market is incredibly efficient at punishing liars.
Right. It has to hold up under the stress tests of reality over time. Okay, what about the second tool, connections? I'm thinking about brands that have almost cult-like followings. I'm thinking about Harley-Davidson.
Perfect example.
I don't think people buy those motorcycles just because of the engineering of the V-twin engine.
Yeah.
They buy them for the connection. They buy them for the subtle nod they get from another Harley rider when they pull up to a red light. Is that what Godin means by connection?
That is the quintessential example of connection. Humans are, at our core, fundamentally lonely creatures.
We are.
We evolved in small tribes, and we are biologically hardwired to want to be seen, to be known, to be understood, and to be part of something larger than ourselves.
It's just safer that way.
It is psychologically safer that way, and frankly, it's more fun. A great marketer uses their product to create connections. They act as an organizer. They stand up and say, People like us do things like this.
I love that phrase.
They take isolated individuals who share a similar worldview or desire, and they give them a banner to gather under. Harley-Davidson doesn't sell transportation. They sell affiliation. They sell the cure to loneliness for a specific type of person.
They are selling the tribe.
Exactly.
And finally, we have the third tool, experiences. The text says every single interaction is an experience.
Every single one. An experience is not just a grand orchestrated launch event. Every interaction a customer has with your organization is an experience, and every single experience either reinforces the story you are telling or it breaks it.
Everything counts.
Using the product for the first time, going to a rally, unboxing the item on your kitchen counter, or, yes, calling the billing department to dispute a charge. Each microscopic action builds or erodes the connection.
What's fascinating here is how this completely redefined what a company actually is and who does what. Because usually in the corporate world, we think of marketing as a specific department.
The marketing department on the third floor.
Exactly. It's the team down the hall. Maybe they have a ping pong table and beanbag chairs. And their job is to design the logo, run the Instagram account, and buy the Google ads.
Right. That is the traditional siloed view.
Yeah.
But the text emphasizes a radical paradigm shifting, quote, the entire organization works for and with the marketer, because marketing is all of it.
Marketing is all of it.
Marketing isn't a department. It's the entirety of the organization's output. It's the pricing strategy. It's the profit margin. It's the intended and unintended side effects of the product.
Let me push back on that, or at least play devil's advocate for the listener who is running a larger team. Are we really saying that everyone is a marketer?
Yes.
But what does this all mean for the person packing the boxes in a hot warehouse? Or the entry-level rep answering the phones on the night shift? Are they really marketers? I mean, they aren't writing ad copy.
They are not only marketers, they are arguably the most important marketers in your entire company. Think about the chain of trust.
Okay.
If the story you are spending millions of dollars telling the world is a story about meticulous care, premium precision, and customer delight.
Right.
But then the person packing the box in the warehouse is pressured by impossible quotas, so they use cheap tape that rips, and they throw the item in a box without padding, so it arrives on the customer's doorstep crushed and broken.
Oh, man.
That packer has just destroyed the entire marketing campaign. The $1 million ad budget is instantly vaporized by a 2-cent piece of cheap tape.
Because the story was a lie.
Precisely. Or if the customer calls in confused about how to use the software and the rep on the phone is rushed, underpaid, reading monotonously from a script, and lacks any genuine empathy for the customer's frustration.
The story of "we care about you" is broken.
Every touch point is the experience.
So everyone is a marketer. That means your supply chain logistics is marketing. Your return policy, whether it takes 2 clicks or mailing in a paper form, is marketing.
Yes.
Your hold music is marketing.
Yes, your hold music is a story. Is it telling the story that we value your time and we are working urgently to help you? Or is the crackling, looping elevator music telling the story that you are a nuisance, we already have your money, and we are trying to manage your complaint as cheaply and painfully as possible until you hang up? Everything speaks.
That is a massive, incredibly practical takeaway. Listeners, whatever you are building, you need to audit your entire customer experience.
You really do.
And I mean, literally walk through it as if you were a skeptical customer. Go to your own website. Try to check out. Call your own support line. Open your own packaging. Is every single touch point, from the very first Instagram ad to the cardboard packaging to the font on the billing invoice, telling the exact same authentically true story.
Because if it isn't, there is a dissonance, a gap between what you say and what you do. And in the modern market, dissonance instantly breeds mistrust.
And mistrust is the death of connection. So what does this all mean? We've covered a tremendous amount of philosophical and practical ground today. Let's synthesize this into something the listener can carry with them. We started in the dust of a village in India with the Vision Spring team, realizing the profound truth that even a life-saving, sight-restoring tool needs a narrative, because you simply cannot arrogantly force your worldview onto someone else.
We have to practice Sonder.
We looked at the $50,000 luxury SUV and admitted the uncomfortable truth that we are driven by irrational, emotional forces, not by logical spreadsheets and feature lists. We drilled down, pun absolutely intended, past the quarter-inch drill bit using the 5 whys to realize we're actually in the business of selling safety, control, and respect.
And finally, we learned that we have to use the timeless tools of true stories, genuine connections, and intentional holistic experiences to deliver that finite menu of feelings.
If we tie all of those threads together into one clear, memorable insight that represents the absolute soul of this chapter, it is this. Marketing is not a battle to force people to want what you happen to make.
It is not a selfish, manipulative act of coercion. True marketing is the generous act of using authentically true stories, genuine human connections, and meticulously intentional experiences to deliver the specific feelings of safety, status, or belonging that your customers have been desperately searching for all along.
It's an act of service. You aren't just selling them a widget. You are helping them become the version of themselves they want to be. You are helping them tell a better story about who they are.
This raises an important question, though.
What's that?
If you accept this premise, if you accept that you aren't just pushing a mass market widget, but rather you are facilitating a deeply personal, emotional change for a specific group of people, how small of a market can you start with to make that change happen?
Because most people in business naturally assume they need to reach absolutely everyone to be successful. They think bigger is always better.
Which perfectly sets up exactly where we are heading next time.
In our next deep dive, we're going to explore a concept that completely flips traditional growth-at-all-costs business advice on its head. We are going to unpack why your ultimate goal shouldn't be to reach everyone, but rather to find the absolute smallest viable market. It's a game changer, and you won't want to miss it. Until then, the next time you get in your car or buy a tool at the hardware store or even try to feed a toddler broccoli, ask yourself, what is the actual story I'm buying?
So, I want you to picture something for a second. Imagine a heavy, solid oak log just sitting on a chopping block.
Okay, a big, dense piece of wood.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And your goal is to split that log straight down the middle. So if you pick up a sledgehammer, which is, a massive, blunt, incredibly heavy instrument.
Right, like a 10-pound weight on a stick.
Yes. And you swing it with absolutely all your might. What actually happens, you hit the wood with a tremendous amount of force, right?
Yeah, a ton of energy.
But it has this massive surface area of impact. So the hammer just, violently bounces off. The log doesn't even splinter.
It just absorbs the blow.
Exactly. But now put down the sledgehammer and pick up a wedge. It's tiny, right? The point of that wedge is sharpened down to 1 millimeter.
Barely any surface area at all.
Right. But when you apply force to that hyper-narrow point, it effortlessly splits the entire oak log wide open.
Just completely cracks it in half.
Yeah. And I bring this up because, in business or in content creation or really building any kind of movement at all, we are constantly being handed sledgehammers.
Oh, all the time. The market loves a sledgehammer.
We're told to go big, cast a wide net, maximize our total addressable market, and just try to appeal to absolutely everyone. But trying to build a product or service that appeals to everyone practically guarantees that it will appeal to no one.
Right. You just become the sledgehammer bouncing off the log.
Exactly. And that physical mechanic of the wedge, it's actually the perfect way to understand market penetration.
It really is. Because a sledgehammer distributes its energy so widely that it just, it totally fails to break the surface tension.
Right.
Whereas a wedge, it concentrates all its energy into this really uncomfortably small, highly specific point. And the fundamental tension we're dealing with today is that human psychology heavily favors the sledgehammer.
Because it feels safer, right?
Exactly. It feels like you are doing more work because the tool is bigger. But the physics of growth dictate that explosive momentum only comes from shrinking your focus until it feels dangerously narrow.
Dangerously narrow. I love that. And that brings us to our mission for this deep dive. Today, we're dissecting the core mechanics of the smallest viable market.
Which is such a brilliant concept.
It is. It's the central thesis of Chapter 4 from Seth Godin's book, This is Marketing. And we're going to deconstruct exactly why pursuing the mass market is this psychological trap that destroys innovation.
Right. And more importantly, we're going to walk through the actual practical mechanics of it.
Yeah. How radically narrowing your focus is literally the most effective, reliable way to build a business or an audience or a project that actually scales.
Yeah. If you are trying to build anything right now, this is for you.
Definitely. Whether you're a bootstrapped founder or maybe a creator looking for an audience or an engineer mapping out a product roadmap, this is the structural foundation you have to get right before you spend another minute on execution.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But, to even begin mapping out that smallest viable market, we really have to completely strip down our definition of what marketing actually is.
Right, because the word itself carries so much baggage.
Oh, tons of baggage. When you hear marketing, the immediate association is usually a transaction.
Like buying ads.
Yeah, exactly. Like I have a piece of software or a ceramic mug or a consulting service, and my job is to just interrupt your day long enough to convince you to hand over your credit card.
The classic sleazy salesman vibe.
Right. But the framework we are looking at in this chapter demands that we abandon that transactional view entirely. We have to view our work through the lens of transformation.
Transformation, okay.
Yeah, we are not vendors, we are agents of change. Every single endeavor begins with identifying the specific change you are trying to make in someone's life.
Okay, I mean, I understand the philosophical appeal of that. Framing yourself as an agent of change sounds a lot more noble than calling yourself a salesperson.
Sure, it sounds great on a LinkedIn bio.
Right. But let me push back on how practical that is for you, the listener, right now.
Okay, let's hear it.
Let's say I've engineered this genuinely revolutionary insulated coffee thermos. Like, I have solved the physics of heat retention.
Okay, a super thermos.
Yeah, it keeps coffee boiling hot for 48 hours. It's completely indestructible. It never leaks. If the utility of the product is objectively superior to literally anything else on the shelf, why do I need to manufacture some profound narrative about change?
You're saying the product should just speak for itself.
Exactly. Shouldn't a superior tool just be for, whoever drinks hot coffee?
I get that. But that is the classic build a better mousetrap fallacy in a nutshell.
Is it?
Oh, absolutely. And it is responsible for thousands of bankruptcies. You're assuming that the market is this perfectly rational machine that just automatically evaluates utility and then rewards the most efficient tool.
Which I guess isn't how humans actually work.
Not at all. The market is deafeningly noisy. And human beings do not make buying decisions based purely on utility. If you aim your thermos at anyone who drinks coffee, you are entering a bloody, commoditized war zone. You're shouting at people who are already perfectly happy buying Yetis or Stanleys or just generic Amazon knockoffs.
Yeah, they already have a thermos they like.
Exactly. You have no mechanism to make them care about yours.
So this concept of change isn't about manufacturing a fake noble narrative. It's about identifying a behavioral shift.
Okay, walk me through it. What does that actually look like?
Well, the text illustrates this by looking at the difference between a trivial change and a profound change.
A trivial change being what?
Like a laundry detergent brand trying to boost its market share by 1%. They are just trying to change a consumer's habit from grabbing the blue bottle to grabbing the red bottle.
Right, which takes millions of dollars in advertising.
Exactly. Massive ad spend, coupons, end cap displays at the grocery store.
Yep.
But the consumer's identity remains completely untouched.
Because at the end of the day, they still just want clean clothes. The soap doesn't really alter how they view themselves in the world. Exactly. Now contrast that with a profound change. Imagine someone launching an after-school program, right? And their explicit goal is to take 12 highly at-risk kids and change their fundamental belief about their own potential.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's completely different.
That is a profound transformation. So bring that back to your super thermos. If you want to penetrate the market without spending $50 million on Super Bowl ads, you cannot aim for the trivial change of, I want people to use my metal tube instead of that other metal tube.
Right, right.
You have to engineer a profound change for a highly specific group.
So we have to group people. And this is where the conversation usually devolves into demographic data, right?
Always. Every marketing meeting ever.
Yeah. We start talking about, 18 to 35-year-old males
Yeah.
living in urban centers making over $80,000 a year.
The standard spreadsheet stuff?
Right. But demographics are completely useless for engineering profound change, aren't they?
Pretty much.
Because, think about it. Two 35-year-old men living in the exact same zip code with the exact same income can have entirely contradictory worldviews.
Oh, completely.
One guy might spend his weekends modifying street racing cars, and the other might be this dedicated urban gardener who absolutely refuses to own a vehicle.
Right. Same demographic, wildly different internal operating system.
Exactly, which is why the organizing principle of all modern growth has to be psychographics, not demographic.
Yes. Psychographics map the internal landscape. We're talking about beliefs, fears, shared cultural values, their secret ambitions.
So going back to my thermos example, my psychographic target is definitely not coffee drinkers.
Far too broad.
Right. Maybe my psychographic target is obsessive backcountry survivalists who view self-reliance in extreme weather as a core pillar of their identity.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah, like people who see a lukewarm cup of coffee on day 3 of a blizzard as a personal failure.
Now that is incredibly specific.
But that specificity is what gives you leverage.
Right. Absolutely. Because when you identify that exact psychographic, you suddenly know exactly how to design the thermos.
Right. I'm not making it out of the cheap plastic.
No, you make it out of a specific aerospace-grade titanium that appeals directly to their obsession with gear weight. You know exactly what obscure survivalist podcasts they listen to, so you know where to talk to them.
I know the exact language to use in the copy.
Exactly. The organizing question that dictates every single decision you make from product design to distribution is just 3 words. Who's it for?
Who's it for? You know, it sounds innocent, but answering that question is actually an inherently violent act of exclusion.
It really is. It hurts to do it.
Because to define who your product is for, you have to actively declare who it is not for.
Right. You have to draw a hard line.
Yeah. You have to look at the urban commuter who just wants a cheap mug for their subway ride and explicitly say, we do not care about you.
We didn't build this for you.
Exactly. If you buy it, great, but we are not compromising a single feature to make you happy. And I want the listener to really think about their own product roadmap right now.
Oh, the dreaded feature backlog.
Right. You probably have a backlog of feature requests, ideas, marketing angles. The only way to prioritize them is to run them through that exclusionary filter.
You have to.
If a feature appeals to the masses but compromises the extreme needs of your specific psychographic, you have to kill the feature.
You have to be ruthless about it.
Because if you don't define who it's for, you literally have no anchor. You end up just drifting back into the gravitational pull of the mass market.
And let me tell you, the gravitational pull of the mass market is overwhelming.
It's so strong.
It is. The moment you identify that hyper-specific group of backcountry survivalists, the immediate panicked instinct of every founder, creator, or board of directors is to ask, but wait, how many of them are there?
Right. Is the market big enough?
We need to widen the net so we can reach the weekend campers, too. But the source material warns us that the pursuit of mass intrinsically dilutes the product. Mass means average.
Mass means average. Let's really look at the actual mechanism as how mass appeal creates mediocrity.
Okay, let's break it down.
It's basically the mathematics of compromise. Think about being tasked with catering a dinner for a massive banquet of 1,000 random strangers.
Sounds stressful already.
It is. You don't know their psychographics, you just know there are 1,000 of them. Because the group is so large, your primary operating emotion is fear.
Right, you're terrified of making a mistake.
Exactly. What if 10% of them have severe spice intolerances? What if another 15% are strictly vegan? What if 5% absolutely hate the texture of mushrooms?
You can't take any risks.
You can't. To mathematically ensure that nobody at that banquet is offended or alienated or sent to the hospital, you have to systematically strip away every intense flavor, every unique texture, and every bold culinary choice.
And what do you end up with?
You end up serving a completely unseasoned, lukewarm, dry chicken breast with a side of plain white rice.
The ultimate mass market meal.
Right. Now, nobody at that banquet is going to violently protest the meal. It is perfectly mathematically safe.
But absolutely nobody is going to take a bite, close their eyes, and experience a moment of culinary transcendence.
Exactly. Nobody is asking the chef for the recipe. Nobody is calling their friends to tell them about the incredible dry chicken they had last night.
You successfully avoided offending anyone, but the cost was that you completely failed to delight anyone.
Yeah, and that is the anatomy of a mass market launch.
It really is. The dry chicken is the software product packed with 50 mediocre features that sort of work for everyone, rather than 3 features that work flawlessly for a specific power user.
Right.
And this is exactly why the smallest viable market is such a radical inversion of standard business logic. Instead of asking the board, how big can we make this? You are actively asking, what is the absolute minimum number of people we need to deeply influence to make this entire endeavor financially and operationally viable?
I want to pause on that word for a second. Minimum.
It's a scary word for a lot of people.
It feels almost sacrilegious in a culture that is just obsessed with hypergrowth, unicorns, and virality.
We're totally conditioned to worship the maximum.
Right. Maximum total addressable market, maximum user acquisition, maximum engagement. So how do we actually practically rewire a team to optimize for the minimum?
You do it by introducing artificial constraints to force clarity.
Artificial constraints, like what?
Well, there is a thought experiment in the book that perfectly crystallizes this. Imagine the government passed a highly specific, unbreakable law regarding your new project.
Okay, a law.
You are legally only allowed to have 30 customers. Or if you're building an audience, you are only allowed to have 3,000 subscribers. Total. Forever.
Wow.
That is your absolute hard-capped limit. If you operate under that absolute constraint, how does your daily behavior change?
Oh, my daily behavior flips upside down overnight.
Yeah.
I mean, if I am permanently capped at 30 software clients, I am immediately firing my SEO agency.
You wouldn't need them.
No, I don't care about ranking on page 1 of Google for generic terms. I am shutting down all my broad social media campaigns.
So what do you do instead?
Instead, I'm going to become obsessively, unnervingly focused on the exact makeup of those 30 people. I need to know their names, their specific workflow bottlenecks. I need to know the exact metrics their bosses use to evaluate them, and literally what keeps them staring at the ceiling at 2 a.m.
You'd have to know them better than they know themselves.
I would have to ensure that my software is such a perfectly calibrated, indispensable extension of their brain that they would happily pay me a premium to keep it running. I would have to overwhelmingly delight them.
And that right there is the magic of the constraint. When you remove the illusion of infinite scale, you are forced to focus on depth rather than width.
Right.
You realize that your survival depends entirely on becoming the perfect answer for a very small room of people. So the actionable framework for you listening here is to organize your entire project around that minimum viability.
Figure out the exact number.
Yes, calculate the smallest number of devoted fans, subscribers, or clients you need to keep the lights on and fund your next iteration. Then basically ignore the rest of the world and overwhelm that tiny specific cohort with an absurd level of care, attention, and bespoke engineering.
But here's the thing. If the mechanics of the smallest viable market are this clear, if optimizing for the extremes creates superior products and passionate evangelists, why is it so rare?
That is the million-dollar question.
Like, why is the market still flooded with unseasoned dry chicken? Logically, every startup should be doing this, but they don't.
They don't because executing the strategy requires a psychological trait that is severely lacking in modern boardrooms and creator studios.
Which
Profound bravery. It requires stepping out from behind a massive, comfortable psychological shield.
the shield of everyone.
Exactly.
Let's dissect how that defense mechanism works, because I see this constantly with early-stage founders. They pitch their product as being for everyone, and they genuinely believe they are being ambitious.
They think they're Steve Jobs.
Right. But really, they are building an escape hatch for their own ego. Let's say I launch a new YouTube channel, and I tell myself, this is a general comedy and lifestyle channel for anyone who likes to laugh.
That's a huge safety net.
Massive. Because when the channel inevitably fails to get any traction, my ego remains completely intact. I can just blame the algorithm.
YouTube just didn't push my videos.
Exactly. I could say the market is oversaturated. I could write a long think piece on Twitter about how TikTok has destroyed the collective attention span of the youth. It was the market's fault, not mine.
You get to play the victim.
Right. But if I launch a channel and publicly declare this channel is dedicated exclusively to teaching advanced sleight-of-hand card magic to semi-professional magicians who want to transition to full-time theater work,
Whoa! That is a tight niche.
I've burned the ships. I have drawn a hyper-specific circle, and if I fail to gain traction within that tiny circle, the algorithm cannot save me. I can't blame macroeconomic trends.
You have to look in the mirror.
I have to face the agonizing reality that my teaching simply wasn't good enough. My magic wasn't compelling. I failed the very specific people I promised to help. Specificity completely removes your alibi.
That's such a great way to put it. Specificity means accountability. When you hide behind the mass market, you are actively insulating yourself from the feedback loop of failure.
Right, self-preservation.
Exactly. By choosing the smallest viable market, you are making a highly vulnerable promise. You are saying, I see you, I understand your specific tension, I built this precisely for you, and I am accountable for the result.
And most people just can't stomach that.
Most organizations simply do not have the institutional courage to endure that level of binary accountability. It is much, much safer to fail generically than to fail specifically.
Okay, let's say I accept that risk.
Okay.
I'm listening to this, and I am willing to put my ego on the chopping block. I've identified my specific psychographic, and I know exactly who I'm accountable to. How do I actually survive that accountability?
What do you mean?
Like, how do I ensure that I don't fail them? How do you actually overwhelm them?
You map their extremes. You cannot just offer a slight improvement over the status quo. If your target market is currently using a clunky, outdated software tool, offering them a competitor that is 5% faster and has a slightly better user interface is not going to trigger a profound change.
It's just a trivial update.
Right. You have to find a position on the psychographic map where you, and you alone, are the absolute perfect answer.
You have to stand alone.
You over-index heavily on the one or two specific axes that your tiny market cares about most, at the direct expense of everything else. You break the standard industry compromises.
This actually reminds me of how specialized tools disrupt these monolithic platforms. Like, think about Adobe Premiere or Final Cut Pro.
Oh yeah, massive mass-market video editing tools.
Right. They have to serve Hollywood editors cutting feature films, wedding videographers, and, like, college students making documentaries. They are bloated with thousands of features.
It's a huge learning curve.
Exactly. And then you see a startup come along building a tool specifically for short-form viral TikTok creators.
Which is a totally different workflow.
Completely. They don't try to build a better color grading suite than Adobe. They completely ignore complex audio routing. Instead, they build an AI-driven automatic captioning system that perfectly matches the pacing and visual style of viral shorts.
And they make it work in 3 clicks instead of 30.
Exactly. They found the extreme access speed of dynamic captioning for short-form retention, and they over-delivered on it to a degree that Adobe never could, because Adobe is too busy maintaining features for feature film directors.
Exactly. The startup didn't build a better generic editor. They became the perfect answer for a small, viable market of aggressive social media creators.
They owned that extreme.
Yes. And this requirement for extreme targeted engineering completely shatters the dominant product development philosophy of the last 15 years. It really forces us to drastically rethink the entire concept of lean entrepreneurship and the MVP.
Oh, the MVP. The minimum viable product. This is where the friction really starts, I think.
Oh, definitely.
Because the prevailing dogma in Silicon Valley, which is pretty much bled into every creative industry now, is move fast and break things.
Right. Reid Hoffman famously said, "If you are not embarrassed by the first version of your product, you've launched too late."
Yeah, that quote is everywhere. The whole culture is built around figuring out the absolute bare-bones, duct-taped version of your idea, throwing it into the market immediately to see what happens, and then iterating based on user data.
That's the standard operating procedure.
But if we are demanding profound change and extreme accountability, like we just talked about, doesn't shipping a broken, embarrassing product actively destroy the very trust we are trying to build?
It absolutely destroys it. The startup world became completely obsessed with the word minimum and basically abandoned the word viable.
That's so true.
The book sets a strict, non-negotiable rule when you are serving a smallest viable market. No fair shipping junk.
No fair shipping junk. I love that.
Releasing a buggy, half-baked product that doesn't actually solve the core tension of the user is not an MVP. It is a betrayal.
A betrayal. Walk through the psychology of that for a second.
Well, think about what we just established. You bravely stepped out and identified a hyper-specific, marginalized group. You made them a promise. You said, "I understand your extreme problem better than anyone else, and I am building the perfect solution for you."
Right. You asked for their trust.
And if you then hand them a piece of broken junk simply because your investors wanted to see a launch metric this quarter, you haven't just lost a customer. You have generated active resentment.
Because you proved you didn't actually care about their problem.
Exactly. You only cared about your own speed.
Now, I can hear the counter-argument from the product managers listening right now.
Oh, they're furious right now.
They're screaming at their dashboard saying, "But if I spend 9 months perfecting the code to make sure it is flawlessly viable, I am burning through my runway. I am losing first-mover advantage. The whole point of the MVP is speed of learning."
Right.
Doesn't this deep, meticulous focus on viability contradict the necessity of speed?
It really doesn't. That argument fundamentally misunderstands what generates actual speed in a business. The speed of writing code is irrelevant if you're building the wrong thing.
That's a good point.
We have to look at the origins of this methodology. Steve Blank, who is one of the architects of the lean startup movement, pioneered this concept of customer development, which the source material brings up.
What's the core idea there?
The central thesis is that the only true existential project of an early-stage company is finding a fit between what you make and what the customer desperately wants.
Right, finding product market fit.
Exactly. The goal of an MVP is not to just have a product in the wild so you can say you launched. The goal is traction. Traction is the only metric that actually
The
matters.
vanity metrics.
It is worth infinitely more than robust architecture, bloated feature sets, or brilliant PR campaigns. You move fast by targeting a tiny group, not by building a broken product.
So the distinction is really about how you achieve that traction. The mass market approach assumes you achieve traction by throwing spaghetti at the wall as fast as possible to see what sticks,
Which is incredibly inefficient.
right? Whereas the smallest viable market approach says you achieve traction by throwing a perfectly engineered dart at a microscopic bullseye.
Yes, perfectly said. And here is how the MVP actually works in this framework. If you ship junk to the mass market, they simply ignore you. The sledgehammer bounces off the log.
Right.
If you ship junk to your smallest viable market, they abandon you. But if you ship a truly viable product, meaning it genuinely delivers on the core promise, even if it lacks every other bell and whistle to a hyper-specific group whose extremes you deeply understand,
They embrace it.
they will embrace it fiercely. They will forgive the terrible user interface. They will forgive the fact that they have to manually export data on a spreadsheet. They will forgive the lack of a slick mobile app.
Because it solves the core problem.
Exactly. Because the core mechanism of the product actually relieves their specific agonizing tension in a way no one else does. And when you achieve that, they don't just become users, they become your partners in development.
Oh, that's huge.
They will gladly tell you exactly what to build next because they want you to succeed just as badly as you do.
That is the ultimate litmus test for whatever you are building right now. Like, I want you to ask yourself this brutally honest question. Are there people in the world who want you to succeed so badly that they are willing to pay you to produce the change you seek to make?
Not just people who think it's a neat idea.
Right. Not people who think your app is cool or people who will consume your content only if it's free. Are there people whose lives or businesses are so hampered by a specific problem that they are actively rooting for your imperfect, minimal solution to work?
Because if the answer is no, you haven't found your smallest viable market yet.
You're still building for everyone.
Yes. You need to strip away the secondary features and build the absolute simplest, most viable mechanism that proves you can deliver that profound change to that tiny group today.
You know, when you look at all of these mechanisms operating together, the shift from transaction to profound change, the rejection of the mass market, the terrifying accountability of specificity, and this rigorous standard of true viability, you see a complete paradigm shift in how growth is actually engineered.
It fundamentally rewrites the physics of momentum.
It really does.
Yeah.
So let's sort of pull these threads together for you, because the core insight driving this entire philosophy rests on a brilliant, counterintuitive paradox.
The central paradox of the chapter.
Exactly. We started by asking why trying to appeal to everyone practically guarantees appealing to no one. And the answer really lies in the inverse.
The paradox is simply this. The smallest viable market is the intense microscopic focus that, ironically and inevitably, generates your massive growth.
Yeah. By refusing to water down your vision to appease the masses, you protect yourself from the ultimate business killer, becoming boring.
You refuse to serve the dry chicken.
You refuse to serve the dry chicken. You force yourself to manufacture something truly exceptional, even if it's only exceptional to 30 people. You operate at the extremes.
And when you overwhelmingly delight that tiny specific group, when you act as the wedge and find that exact spot where you stand alone, you create a localized fire.
A concentration of energy.
Exactly. You create a concentration of heat and energy that a mass market sledgehammer could literally never generate. And what is the fundamental nature of fire?
It spreads.
It spreads. Those 30 people or 3,000 people whose profound tension you solved, they become your evangelists.
Because they have their own networks.
Right. They share your solution with the next concentric circle of the market, not because you paid them to, but because using your product elevated their own status.
They want to look smart for finding you.
Exactly. They spread the fire for you. You do not achieve massive scale by aiming your initial efforts incredibly wide, hoping to catch a fraction of a % of everyone. You achieve massive scale by aiming incredibly deep, capturing a few with absolute certainty, and letting the sheer physics of their enthusiasm drive your expansion.
It requires an entirely different kind of ambition, really. I think the fear of shrinking our focus is rarely about business metrics. It is almost always a fear of being seen clearly.
That's incredibly true.
When we attempt to appeal to everyone, We get to hide comfortably in the crowded center of the bell curve. But when we commit to a smallest viable market, we are stepping onto a painfully small, well-lit stage and saying to a specific group of people, I made this for you.
It is an act of deep vulnerability.
It is, but it is the only true mechanism for making a lasting impact. So let's assume you've done the hard work.
Okay, the groundwork is laid.
You know exactly the psychographic you are targeting. You have embraced the bravery of the wedge. You have built a truly viable, profound solution that overwhelmingly delights your tiny market.
You've got the fire going.
Right. But the immediate, terrifying question that follows is, how do you value that work?
Yeah.
How do you price a bespoke, profound transformation in a global market that seems relentlessly, dangerously obsessed with cheap, fast, one-click commodities?
Oh, and that is the precise moment where most founders completely self-destruct.
They panic.
They build a masterpiece for a specific market, and then they panic and price it like a mass market commodity. But next time, we're going to deconstruct the dangerous illusion of competing on price.
That's going to be a good one.
We will explore why the race to the bottom is a game you absolutely do not want to win, and why discounting your work is the absolute last refuge of a marketer who has simply run out of generous ideas.
I can't wait for that. Until next time, take a hard look at your project, find your wedge, and define exactly who it's for. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.
What you just listened was the beginning of a full audio, way longer, explaining every single chapter of the book. If you would like to keep listening to the end and access to the full audio, you can access it with the link down below in the description and in the pinned comment.